Philip, Skope Construction helped save St Catherine's Aged Care $120,000 on this project. How did they make these savings happen, and what did they do that really stood out to you?
So we work closely with Skope, considering they were most competitive during the tender, and we know with working them previously, they are very good at what they do. So we sat down with Skope and identified key items where we could start to reduce some significant or some clever ways of working out some alternatives. And when we got the prices on the Friday, we just had to sit down over the weekend, and they put in the extra hours, out of hours over the weekend, and we consolidated the pricing and came back to the board meeting on the Monday and sat down with St Catherine's, and we had the numbers there showing that we met their budget, and we had a list of items that were broken into nice to haves, must haves, and just identified that to St Catherine's so they could see what areas we could probably bring in or cut out, and empowered them with the options as well.
Skope Construction saved St Catherine's Aged Care Facility $120,000, which is an amazing cost saving on a project like this. Philip, could you take us through those savings and where did they actually save St Catherine's that money?
They identified a lot of key items there at St Catherine's. So the key items there that we had were mostly joinery items where we simplified some of the finishes. So whether it was like changing them from a high gloss type of finish, which was quite expensive, to something a bit more standard, which was a laminate, which still gave the same effect. We also went through and looked at alternative options, for example, with different types of finishes to the ramps that were specified, whether it was concrete and alternative to paving. So there's quite a few there, but they did identify key things there that could be simplified and that provided better value for St Catherine's.
Now, refurbishing an aged care facility while it's still operating, especially with high care residents on site, how did Skope Constructions help you manage these challenges, keep the project on budget?
They are very capable in working in live environments, as we know. And so what we did before we got onto site, it was preparing and having some meetings, sitting down with Skope, sitting down with St Catherine's themselves, working out key areas that could be reserved for the works to occur. And we broke them down into stages. We had to relocate some existing residents to the other areas of the facility. And then we sectioned that off so Skope could work in a safe environment, keeping the residents safe and not bothered. So then the residents weren't obviously disturbed either as well. So there was a few factors, but it was just mostly involving communication with ourselves and St Catherine's, ensuring that the facility keeps running as they are.
How did Skope's early advice on building methods and cost-saving strategies contribute to the success of the project?
So it worked quite apparently with the three of us, the client of St Catherine's, Skope, and us, so we could all have an open communication and help the project go smoothly.
Now, you worked closely with Brett and John from Skope throughout this project. How did their teamwork with you lead to what you call smart solutions?
So essentially, in the first step, Brent identified key areas that could be value managed. And we went through that list, and a lot of them were finishes related, but also those finishes were run by the designer and architect to make sure we were achieving the design intent. So we didn't sacrifice the quality of the work. So it was still peer reviewed by all the consultants. The actual structure itself, we didn't modify. We adapted alternative methods, but in essence, the foundations were still there and still a quality project was delivered. We had John overlooking the project during its duration.
Now, it's clear that St Catherine's trusts Skope Constructions, especially since they've given them extra work. What did Skope do during the project that made you and the client, St Catherine's, want to continue working with them?
I think they've built up the trust between us and also St Catherine's there by proving that they can deliver the project in that environment. It was a live environment. They delivered it on time. They identified key items and they weren't price gouging during that process either. And I think it was just a transparent process where the communication was open during that whole construction period. And I think that with that open communication, it entrusts us and entrusts the client as well, that they are guided through the entire process and they're also educated through that process as well.
Philip, can you share how Scope's involvement in extra projects, like, for example, there was landscaping, there was temporary staff accommodation, continues to add value beyond the initial refurbishment?
I guess it also develops their relationship with St. Catherine's by doing these smaller works that assist St. Catherine's to get where they need to do. For example, the staff relocation, we had to relocate them because there's a central courtyard that's currently being redone as we speak. And that access path led into the staff area. So Scope were willing to assist St. Catherine's by relocating them to another area on the site, which allowed access to that main courtyard, and then bringing them back once they've finished that area too. By doing these smaller works, just shows that they go above and beyond, not just what they're engaged to do.
So, looking back, what key things did Scope do that made this project a success? And how did the financial savings and Scope's careful management, do you think, improve the client's satisfaction and strengthen the trust that they have in Scope Construction?
And one is, as I mentioned earlier, was the value management that they added through doing a bit of value engineering exercise that was peer reviewed by all consultants, including ourselves. The open transparency and communication through the entire process. So they were open, they would flag anything that would pop up. So there was that constant communication and transparency that was continued throughout the process, which obviously entrusted Scope to show what their ability is on the site and then what they could deliver.
What are you most proud of in your work with Scope? And how did they actually exceed your expectations?
I guess what I'm most proud of with Scope is that they identify key items on site that do come up. They don't shy away from the transparency. They actually flag things and we can work things through together. While I find with some other companies, they might shy away from certain things and not bring them up, especially when we're having our meetings. They like to try and deal with it internally. But for my purpose, I'd rather run through it all together as a team. We're all trying to deliver the same project all together. So it's best off that we all talk about it, have that transparency, and work through it together. And also, Scope has the smarts from previous experiences as well that they bring to the table, so we can run through those options and see what we can adapt to our project.
What advice would you give to other project managers or clients working with Scope Constructions based on the benefits and the savings that they've brought to this project and both your clients at Catherine's Aged Care?
I guess my recommendation would be give Scope the opportunity to look at the project. They have a lot of experience. They've proven themselves on St. Catherine's, their ability and their skills to deliver projects on time and within budget. They've got a great team there, and so I wouldn't hesitate in recommending them.
Now, this is not the first time that you and the principal of your firm, David Arguelles, have experienced the good work of Skope Constructions. How many projects have you worked with on Skope, and how many times have you seen them come to the party and actually helped aged care facilities like this project?
There's been a number of them, and I don't see us not working with them in the future because they do deliver as promised and they do have that experience with these aged care facilities. So they do have a lot to offer, and yeah, looking forward to working with them on future projects.
Now, when you talk about construction in aged care, a lot of the larger companies have hundreds and hundreds of staff, and you might start working with the person right at the top, the CEO, and then you rarely get to see them. But in Skope Constructions, the founder of Skope, John Carolyn, really goes out of his way to keep in touch on a day-to-day basis. What has it been like dealing with him, and how has that helped you in the running of this project?
It's been really good, I have to say, because as you mentioned, with other companies, that you lose sight of the director once the company's engaged. And dealing with John, he's obviously got a lot of experience dealing with projects himself, and dealing with him on a day-to-day just gives that confidence that he's involved in delivering the project himself. He guides his team really well, and he provides that hands-on experience throughout. So it's been actually quite good dealing with John. He's got a very calm mindset as well that he brings to the delivery of the project as well. Whenever there's an issue, there's no hesitation in talking through with him and finding a solution. He's always willing and keen to find something to work.
Philip, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing the success that you and your client, St Catherine's Aged Care Facility, have, and the fact that Skope Constructions has been able to save you and the team over $120,000 on this project. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you.